You're welcome, Sean, aka, or formerly known as Kishon Furlow.
Kishon Furlow. Welcome, Sean. Kishon Furlow.
Kishon Furlow.
Kishon Furlow.
We've finally arrived at the end. We've gone over his background, his career, all the music that he dropped, and dived into everything else in between. Though still, there are many blanks and unanswered questions that we're still missing from the story. Blanks that we'll observe and then try our best to deduce as we go along. Though do keep in mind that everything I'm about to explain up to this point in this series is going to be very important to the last installment of this story. If you've noticed a trend about my videos on this channel, it's that I usually don't make longer formatted videos, just because of how long it takes to make them, and how people are more likely to lose their attention span over a longer video length versus a shorter video. But if you're sitting down right now, or you're just eating somewhere, just make sure that you heat yourself up a second or third serving, because today, I'm making an exception to that rule, because by the end of how broken yet thankful I was that I got to make this video, you won't regret watching. I promise. However, before we proceed, why don't we start by letting Kishon himself explain everything, since everything we saw transpire was explained to us in a series of tweets directly from him. During the winter of 2020, Kishon responded to a fan that had genuinely been asking what we've been all wanting to know this whole time. And that is, what happened? And before we start, some of you are probably wondering how I was able to find his tweets, since it's widely known that he actually went on to delete his entire Twitter account shortly right after. And to that, I'd like to respond by giving a huge shout out to the Crew Hip Hop Corner, one of the cornerstones and OGs in the Christian hip hop media space. If you guys remember during the whole back and forth between Shailin and the Crew Hip Hop Corner, in the consequential back and forth, the crew ended up getting their channel taken down. And it was sad to see because they had built up about 20,000 subscribers over the course of 6 years. And as a result, 6 years of content was terminated by YouTube within 7 days. And so they were forced to restart from the ground up. So during those 7 days, I went through some of their old archive of videos and saved some of their older videos, one of which they happened to cover Kishon's since deleted tweets. And without them, this entire series wouldn't have even been possible to produce in the first place. So from myself and everybody that's been genuinely rocking with every video, we truly appreciate the work that you guys have done over the years in Christian hip hop, and hope for many more years ahead. During this video, we'll go over the tweets and use the information that we've gathered throughout the series to piece together what became of Kishon and how by the end of everything, this will all make perfect sense. Though going forward, I'm going to let you know two things. One, even with the information that I'm going to provide you from Kishon himself, at the end of the day, we don't have every side/piece of the story. Only Kishon's side, which we do have sourced from Kishon himself. And two, from now on until the rest of this video, we're only going to be referring to Kishon by his second stage name, You're Welcome Sean. And it's only fitting because that's what most of us know him by after 2017. And I believe his name change plays a vital part in his story, as you'll find out for yourself. Plus, his name change is actually one of three. Yes, 3 names that You're Welcome Sean had. Though, a lot of this is a bit confusing to explain right now, so keep in mind we'll cover everything in the following order. The Twitter thread, an analysis to see if there was any truth, since these are tweets that one person is allegedly claiming, the reason for all his name changes, where he's currently now, and finally, my closing thoughts on this whole story. So, without further ado, now that we've got the introduction out of the way, let's finally jump into the final part.
look, a lot of you guys were constantly asking us, hey, what happened to Kishon? We used to hear him all the time. Now we don't hear him at all. And he explains this in a series of tweets. So first, a fan says, you're welcome.
In the video, the crew breaks down the entire situation that You're Welcome Sean explains in a series of tweets. This all started when a fan tweeted out, You're Welcome Sean dropped 3 absolute bangers to Spotify in 2018, and then just dipped. To which Kishon replies back and says, thanks for tweeting this. Thank you for liking my music. I'll answer your analysis and this will be my last set of tweets. I'm deleting this account today. And just a quick note, I like how even though he could have just walked away from CHH without saying a single word, he actually took the time to explain everything to his supporters. And you don't see a lot of artists do that. He goes on saying, when I was young, I signed a deal with a label. I was enamored by the artists on the roster and thought the label could help. The label owner used a Christian reason I should sign 100% of my publishing, a move he learned from Reach Records because they snatch a lot of artist publishing. I have never received 1 cent from this label, or even any fortified connections. My budgets were smaller than my indie budgets. Somehow, the label just up and lost like 100 racks and couldn't fund ish, and instead of releasing me independent, the owner just sold my contract. I've been signed to a different label for like 2 years. By the time y'all heard Yes I Am, Summerhood Lottie, and Lord and Taylor, they were already 2 years old, which would make sense and would mean that they were all originally made in 2016. He goes on saying, the label took forever with processing everything, with uninformed and antiquated methods. Me and my current label could never agree on the brand. They have so many artists and limited staffing. I have made some of the best music of my life with no way to put it out the last couple years. That's why y'all got 3 bangers in 2018 and nothing more. My label stopped releasing. Anyone that knows me knows I have at least 100 unreleased songs I could drop, and I'm about to, because honestly, the ish had me so depressed. I signed my first deal right after my daddy died, and he pushed me to write my first rap. Very personal. And before I continue on, I just want to say that it's really sad to hear these types of stories from artists, especially when we were covering his whole upbringing in part 1. As fans of hip-hop and just by nature and anything we might consume in the media, we always want to hear a good feeling comeback story about how people beat the odds just to make it to the top, as being at the bottom is something a lot of people can relate to than being at the top. But sadly, it's just merely a fiction in most cases. We all want to be the underdog, but when we're playing against reality, not everybody can beat the odds. Furthermore, he goes on, this is the warning I have for anyone that can learn from my situation. Don't ever let fear of failure, fear of being an outcast, fear of gatekeepers, or fear of public response stop you from doing and saying what you know you should. Righteousness sits in the light. Be in the light. Also, don't let the industry drain a gift meant to bring healing for the sake of capitalism. Money will come. It's the least important aspect. Ownership and control are supposed to be subjected to the spirit when you make music. And here's the blessing. Thank you to all the homies that I made on this account. May God be with you and watch over you. May your families be healthy and your sanity in place. Never let the spirit go. Stay close with the people that love you. And don't forget to forgive yourself. Once this tweet was sent, those were his final words, as the thread ends, and all of You're Welcome Sean's socials disintegrate into internet deletion.
At that point, man, you know, why? Why is this happening? And what's going on really at Collision? Are they about to fold? I have no idea. But they really have nobody now but Kishon Furlow, and they just signed Kishon. I think last year they just signed Kishon Furlow.
Now, there's a lot to unpack here, since I did say that these tweets are alleged claims. As much as I like to believe anything out of anyone's mouth, claims do have to be backed up first with some sort of receipt. So, let's start with the history of Collision Records, since that's all who we know he signed to. Now, they had a good number of signed artists when they formed over a decade ago. Some of the artists that you guys may remember on that label are Swoop, Christian Grey, Dre Murray, Corey Paul, and Alex Faith. All of these guys were all on the label with Collision Records, but each one would show a curious sign of slowly departing from the label within the alarming span of 2 years. Now, we can't confirm if all of these artists just left because they ran into a similar situation as You're Welcome Sean, but the label did cease to operate, as if you go online, their website hasn't been updated in years and their Twitter page isn't active anymore going into 2017. While the history of the label sounds controversial, Adam Tomanson had been traveling on mission trips, pastoring, and working with Lecrae and Reach Records with the vision of one day starting his own label for aspiring Christian artists. And in 2009, that vision would arrive, as Adam will go on to open Collision Records. For the first order of business, Adam would need a promising artist to sign as the foundation for the label, and that person was Swoop. Swoop went on to be Collision Records' first signing and fan favorite on the label. They would then proceed to build their foundation as they would sign Christian Grey, Dre Murray, Alex Faith, Corey Paul, and lastly Kishon Furlow, aka now You're Welcome Sean. It was said among the fans that during the early to mid 2010s, Collision Records' core roster and potential at the time could almost be seen and compared to in the same light as Reach Records. And just like how Reach was effective at branding and stamping their 116 legacy that people freshly remember to this day, Collision was in effect finding themselves on the same path, and fans loved seeing a younger roster of Christian artists potentially compete with a Reach, though as time went on, things will quickly shift for Collision, as Swoop and Christian Grey, the two biggest cornerstones and foundations of the label, would leave in 2015. Christian would leave as he would address the separation, as him and Collision were both, quote, going in different directions. The label declined to comment on the situation, but Christian stressed that he held no ill will towards the label and just wanted to move on. And as for Swoop, in an interview with DJ Wado, he actually states that he was let go in the interest of the label's direction. During the interview, while he expressed that there was some tension with the decision, it seemed that he genuinely held no grudges against the label. But nonetheless, it got people talking as the fans were firing off questions about why one of the biggest artists on Collision's roster left. Corey Paul would leave the label in 2017. He too would state that there was no ill will towards the label. And as for Alex Faith and Dre Murray, this is where things get interesting, as Alex Faith would also leave Collision Records just a few weeks apart from Corey Paul. And you see, this is where things get weird, because most of these departures at this point display a common theme of having no ill will and just saying it's nothing but love. Though if that were the case and every artist had a good relationship with the label, why would they leave a seemingly good situation? Because at this point, there are only two people left on the label before its eventual collapse: Dre Murray and, at that time, Kishon Furlow. Now, there's not much to go off to prove that each artist left the label due to any shady dealings, as in You're Welcome Sean's case. However, when we do a bit of cross-referencing with You're Welcome Sean's details about how the label ended, and observe how Collision lost all 6 of their artists within the short span of 2 years, it leads me to believe that there is reasonable truth to these claims. Because for a label to just suddenly lose 4 artists, while the remaining artists on the label have their contracts sold out, shows us that something definitely went wrong before its closure. Also, this isn't an attempt to attack Adam the owner, as we're merely covering what's transpired from one party's claim. And we don't have his side or other key witnesses to attest to these claims. However, as the years go by, everything that Kishon states here does hold a good weight of truth when we take a closer look. Plus, when it comes to more information, we see here that You're Welcome Sean states that he was convinced to sign 100% of his publishing to Collision, which is crazy considering that in today's independence of music and the knowledge that gets passed around today, it's widely known that giving 100% of your music publishing or a master's is the last thing that you want to do. And for those of you who aren't aware, music publishing is defined as the rights to a lyrical composition of an artist's music catalog, such as words or certain melodies. Some people might confuse this with a master's, which is the right to the original recording in a song catalog. In You're Welcome Sean's case, he states that he had given away his entire publishing, to which, when I was doing some more research, I found that artists today can be typically offered up to 90% of their publishings in a deal. By giving away 100% of your publishing, it essentially takes away your entire ability to maintain any financial backing, as the artist can't control the money they make off of their publishing. Full publishing generally includes administration, legal protection, song sheet music, songbooks, a 50-50 split on some of the royalties, and more. There are other aspects of a deal that are also included, but you're severely selling yourself short if another form of earning potential is severed away from you. And however his deal was structured, it didn't seem to matter anyway, since giving away 100% of his publishing, like he stated earlier, meant that he didn't receive 1 cent from his entire publishing. Though to a fault, this does fall on your welcome, Sean, as he shouldn't have just signed the deal simply because of the big names on the label, or hearing a Christian reason for signing, though he does seem to acknowledge those faults. Another allegation that he brought up was the fact that Reach tries to snatch their artists' publishing. Now, to be honest, this claim is a bit out there considering that we don't have any flat-out proof. But I will agree on the general sentiment that the goal of many record labels is to try and own as much of your publishing, masters, and all other copyrights, since record labels are essentially music banks. If I want to buy a house or start a business, a bank would be ideal for someone who has zero financial leverage at the beginning. All you would have to do is pay the bank back on top of an interest rate, though in exchange, you would likely end up spending multiple years trying to pay everything back. The longer you take to pay, the more interest in accumulated debt they'd receive. And this idea is exactly the same for record labels. An artist who is looking to grow their career might not be able to get there if they don't have certain industry connections, information, and most importantly, money to fund their career and living. And so that's where a label could step in, given that they have reason to believe that the artist could make more money back than what they're initially loaned in the beginning. Now, there's nothing wrong with labels using such a business practice, as it's mutually beneficial for both parties. The artist has a better opportunity to advance their career, and labels get a financial return off of their investment. But this is where things can also go severely left, since the prospect of owning someone's music could land someone a large and near endless revenue from their publishing and masters altogether, especially if they were to land a big artist. Another crucial point he made was when he mentioned a ballpark number of how much Collision Records lost prior to their closure. For one, how did they lose $100,000? And two, exactly how do labels afford to keep their business going? As labels can't just magically stay afloat on top of money forever.
Let me say it again. One successful artist pays for the other 10 artists who are failures. Stop trying to think you're about to find the next Drake. Fuck out of here. Sign all these niggas. If one pop off, you'll make enough money that your label is winning. The other 10, you put them as a write-off. If you're going to be the success, that label's going to take the money that you have succeeded, because they make 10 times what you're going to make, and they're going to use it to invest in other artists. That's how it goes. If you look at the label like Amazon, it's in the label's interest to make you not get you out of debt. Remember I told you that. You have leverage with somebody when they're always in debt, when you're financing their career more than they've made. I hope you understand that. You see how, well, they do it with the U.S. government, but Jeff Bezos and Amazon, they claim they make no money a year. They don't lose money, but they don't really make money. They don't pay no taxes. They're about break even. But you know they're successful. There's a lot comes with admitting you're actually making a lot of money. Same with the labels. You know what a label does when an artist basically, you have recouped, they offer you more money. Oh, so we gave you $1 million for your first album and damn, you blew that shit out of the water. Yo, we'll give you 5 right now. What's up? They're going to drown you in debt. The label's job is to drown you in debt. Because let me tell you, and trust me, I've seen every type of record contract. A lot of record contracts state this. Royalty payments, the split on it between the artist and the label is different when the artist is in debt than when the artist has recouped. Let me give you an example. If you have recouped, the split, like, I don't know, never for most artists, but let's just say it's a 50-50. Or let's say it's in your favor. They put it in your contract. It'll be in your contract. if we ever recoup, the royalty payments will be 60-40 or maybe even 70-30. Unheard of, but fine. So you get 70% of every dollar coming in terms of royalties. The label gets 30. Only after you're recouped. But before you're recouped, you get 30%. The label gets 70. Think about it. Does the label ever want you to get out of debt, knowing that every money they gave you, they're going to get back anyway? Think about that.
Now, I want to reiterate again that there's no reason for me to believe that Reach is snatching any artist's publishing, as there's no proof that they're doing this and intentionally dealing business in bad faith. However, an inside perspective from a self-made music mogul like academics is very helpful when we look into one of the many ways and examples any Christian or non-Christian music label may deal with an artist. Whether if it's a small label or a big label, it takes a lot of work to find a big artist or a number of artists that'll help you pay for your budgeting and other expenses. He also mentions that in addition to not receiving a single cent from his music, his label budgets to work on his music was a lot smaller than his independent budgets prior to signing, which is completely going backwards and pointless if you're an artist looking for help from a label. That is something an artist would expect the label to take care of, and so with an unreasonable budget and no artist publishing, that is only bound to be a recipe for a bad record deal.
Is his music going to be Christian enough? You know, like a lot of us, like younger artists who kind of make music that can be a little bit more relatable to people. They're like, oh, is his music going to be Christian enough? And I'm like, man, I still put content that's really reflective of Christ in my music and really reflective of Jesus, because that's naturally who I am. But at the same time, it's not corny. You know, some people might be like, oh man, this Christian rap is going to be corny. Well, I feel like all of my records could be easily played on the radio, like anywhere. So a lot of people say that, but I truly believe that. So for me, it's all about like not having those stigmas and being able to keep an open mind as far as the framework of the artistry.
When you read his entire series of tweets, I think that one thing that is as clear as day is when you realize how he underwent different name changes. For anyone that remembers, You're Welcome Sean underwent 2 different name changes under 3 different names. First, we had Kishon Furlow, his real name, who a lot of people know him by until mid-2017. Then, sometime between his contract being sold to a different label, we have You're Welcome Sean, who a lot of people became familiar with after 2017. And then there's You're Welcome.
A lot more common with Kishon and I. Kishon's name changed to You're Welcome.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking about Kishon Furlow?
Exactly, Kishon Furlow.
So he builds up his name. He's Kishon Furlow. Everybody knows who Kishon Furlow is. Then he changes his name to just Kishon. We're all still trying to get used to that. But did you just say he went through another name change?
Yeah, it's You're Welcome now. And
wait,
a lot of people ask me,
hold on. Did you say You're Welcome?
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
What is that supposed to mean?
So, yeah, I don't really know. It's a new name, and it's for good reasons, because 2018 is definitely going to be like a whole game changer entirely. But yeah.
A name change that I briefly remember he went by, though it seemed that the name was more so scrapped, as everyone was already getting used to You're Welcome Sean anyways. With every name change, it made fans wonder why he did this. For some, people might have thought that he was trying to rebrand himself away from CHH, or that maybe he just tried to change his name because under a different artist name, he wouldn't be bound by his legal contract under Kishon Furlow, or perhaps there's just some other reason. Though, in my own opinion, while it's not been proven, my own theory is that he probably underwent these changes because his new label probably wanted him to go in a different direction, and so they thought that You're Welcome Sean would be better suited. It's a somewhat baseless theory on why he might have done this, but it really isn't unreasonable to consider. Though, aside from his reasons, one thing that I find a distinguishing difference in is in Kishon Furlow and You're Welcome Sean. And no, I'm not talking about the names, but rather the characters that are played out in different realities. You see, in one world, we see a more clean-cut artist whose rap style appears more to an older school rap audience, as he does it by rapping about God, his life story, and other personal aspects that hit home for people personally. While in an alternate reality, we see a whole different artist. One that appears a bit more youthful, as his rap style appeals more to a younger demographic. In this reality, You Welcome Sean mentions God and still manages to connect with his listener, but highlights this more by having a cool-headed confidence and subtle flair without crossing this invisible line of unhealthy confidence and boasting. Personally, if you ask me, I actually enjoy this version of Kishon, as the persona of You Welcome Sean shows his unconscious flair and confidence without blatantly showing you, the listener, that he's trying too hard to be cocky or boastful. In a sense, it's just a laid-back style of rap that suits him well. And also, the power of You Welcome Sean's persona definitely appealed to a younger school Christian audience that wanted a blend of faith-based influence and mainstream quality, and essentially a music formula for everyone to listen to, whether CHH or mainstream, Christian or non-Christian. And that's not to say that I didn't enjoy his original persona of Kishon Furlow. I really enjoyed his music too. But I'm just saying that I prefer You Welcome Sean's music, as I believe that he's a more rounded and versatile artist. That, and I mean, my personal preference leans more towards the younger demographic of music, so naturally my bias will lie with his newer music. But really, in retrospect, both the artist Kishon Furlow and You Welcome Sean offered a lot of variety to CHH fans, as if you were an older fan, you could listen to his older projects, or if you were a newer fan, you could listen to his newer projects, or just both all together. I think that even though his career didn't pan out the way a lot of his supporters wanted it to, either way, one of his definite positives looking back is that his music could be played everywhere, as he offered a lot of variety and versatility for anyone to listen to.
Now look, a lot of you guys were constantly asking us, hey, what happened to Kishon? We used to hear him all the time. Now we don't hear him at all.
Now, as to You Welcome Sean's current whereabouts and what he does in 2022 is really unknown. For years, he's kept a low profile on social media since deleting both his Twitter and Instagram. Though, as for music, there have been some online resurgences, though these resurgences are very scarce at best. We'd hear from him on a feature verse off of Jude's album in late 2019, and then after the space of about 2 entire years, there will be 2 more songs from him released by Kevmo in late 2021. Now, realistically, these aren't new songs that indicate a possible comeback, but rather these are unreleased songs that You Welcome Sean never dropped, as he did state earlier that he has hundreds of unreleased songs. You Welcome Sean's long periods of absences followed by brief appearances every once in a blue moon more than indicate to me that he has no future plans in CHH and likely music altogether. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am, but we'll never know.
Being an artist is like telling your story your way. And when you tell your story your way, you find the people who connect with it. You find the people who resonate with it. So the people who resonate with you can come out of like any field, any like subgenre, any demographic of people, when you're simply making music to connect to people rather than making music to connect with a demographic, if that makes sense. Because we're all so dynamic. People are so dynamic. If you try to say like, if you try to make music for a certain category of people, it's like, okay, well, this person might fall in this category, but they like this kind of music, and they like this kind of music, and this kind of music. So I think you just gotta focus on being yourself and draw the people who resonate with you.
I think there's a lot to unpack here with my closing thoughts. When I started the series, I had a great time making part 1 and 2 because of how much I enjoyed finding gems of different moments, whether if it was revisiting past songs or ones that I never got the chance to listen to, interviews that I spent hours just sitting down to, listening to his amazing come up, or the feedback that I got back from you guys, and the appreciation that you guys had for his time in CHH. I truly mean this when I say this, that I wholly and thoroughly enjoyed sharing his stamp and legacy around CHH with you guys. Though, when I was making part 3, as a fan, I truly couldn't make this video without feeling a small sense of regret and sorrow. Regret that we truly will never see his love and potential for music blossom due to the unfavorable circumstances he ran into dealing with Collision Records. I truly believe that had he stayed independent and dropped music without any restrictions or issues, that we really would have witnessed something big. as, like this fan said, in his own words, he dropped 3 absolute bangers in 2018. And as a listener, especially throughout that summer, I remember exactly when 2 of those 3 videos immediately hit 100,000 views in less than a month. Even though he was held back for years, his 3 songs felt like he truly never lost any momentum at all. He was able to drop nothing but memorable bangers that were doing well, and did it all while battling industry politics. It was great to listen to someone rap about God, and also use their creative flexibility to deliver high quality music that didn't necessarily cross over into quote-unquote secular rap. In a strange sense, his music really could be played anywhere. For Christians that loved listening to quality music without hearing any expletives, drugs, or topics that negatively affected their faith, and non-Christians that wanted a mainstream feel and could just appreciate good quality music. Though, as I stated earlier too, I also felt a sense of sorrow when I made this video, especially the part of this tweet. I think anyone who's experienced a loss in their lives knows how heavy it is to grieve past something and to be offered a career and life-changing opportunity, only to have it destroy your career is truly something that isn't easy to mentally let go and move past from. An important story to hit this video home and share the importance of understanding the great but brutal horrors of the music industry is to bring up the Jay Monty and Sony situation.
So I was caught in I was in a vulnerable place, you know what I'm saying? A label hits you up like Sony is big as Sony, and your immediate thought is you just forego every warning that you've ever heard about labels and every horror story that you've ever heard, and you just say that's not going to be the same for me. Like that's not going to be the case. There's plenty of people who smoke cigarettes and don't get cancer, you know what I'm saying? So like I'll be the exception, you know, and you sign the deal because you think if I sign to this major, I'm going to have major success. So that's what happened. But also, like, as soon as I signed the deal, like the entire label got fired. Like almost the entire team that hit me up, that was invested in me, got let go and moved to another state and city. You know what I'm saying? So like, by the time the ink dried, I was like sitting in front of a bunch of strangers, you know what I'm saying, who didn't care that much for me or you know, they didn't really understand the vision that I had cultivated with the previous team. So already off the top, it was just like a bad situation. And so there were so many just obstacles to overcome in the beginning, and one thing became another, and 1 week turned to a month and a year and 2 and 3, and before you know it, it was just like a long period of silence for the most part.
Now, once that ink dried up, Monty found himself in a completely different situation. One that left him with no control over how he wanted to record his music, no permission to put out that music, no money coming in after his advance dried up, and the worst of it all was when at one point, when his car tire blew out, he was trying to buy baby formula for his son. He called the closest person he knew at the label to ask for $30, only to be told that they didn't even have $30 in their marketing budget. And that's crazy to think, considering how big of a company Sony is, only for them to tell you that you couldn't even feed your son. Now, luckily, Jay Monty does get a good ending out of this, as once this is all over and his contract is up, he went independent and is now doing better than he ever has. I don't know where Kishon is in life, but I truly pray that his past doesn't let him define who he is and where he is now. And I hope that he's doing good for himself in 2022. If you're an aspiring artist watching this video, just understand that I'm not trying to trash or gaslight the idea of signing to a label. Record labels have extremely helpful resources to elevate an artist's career. Don't get me twisted, but only when it is done absolutely right. Take someone like Halvey. His situation directly benefited him. He didn't have the leverage that he first once had when he was sitting at around 20,000 monthly listeners, and he was just putting up his music on Rapzilla just to get his name out there. But once he was able to sign with Reach, he was able to access a whole new audience, industry connections, and a mutually beneficial situation that benefited both him and Reach. No matter what you're told or offered, you definitely want to hire some type of business lawyer or someone with experience in the inner dealings of record labels before signing a contract, as it will go a long way. Just because someone might use a Christian reason to try and sign you doesn't mean that it leaves you invulnerable to the implications of the business side. And there's a lot we can learn from this, as Kishon also explains the importance of ownership and control in the spirit. And in the end, while he didn't get his publishing through Collisions, he did luckily get whatever remained of it through Curb Records, a label affiliated with artists such as Ty Brazel and more. While Kishon went through his trials, his closing tweets does shed a positive light to this whole story. For one, a lesson for any upcoming artist to be wise before taking advantage of whatever career-changing opportunity is presented right in front of them. Thanks to the revolution of artist independence in today's music industry, not every artist has to sign to a major label. And in CHH, that message is as loud as ever thanks to the contribution of guys such as No Big Deal, Joey Vontes, Ruslan, and more, who have all preached the strong importance of going independent. And maybe someone is probably gonna think, well, I like those guys, but sometimes they just talk about streaming numbers and staying independent way more than they talk about Jesus. Which, to that I'll say, that is the furthest thing from the truth, because while they might bring up artist independence, it really is a relieving feeling for an artist to fully take control of their own career, instead of putting it into the hands of some strangers. So naturally, it does tie into their faith and music content. And on top of that, without the option of going independent, we wouldn't even be able to see someone like a Ruslan or your other favorite artists in this space today. And thanks to these guys, the creative landscape has massively shifted in CHH to where not everyone has to sign to a record label like a Reach, Capitol, or a really big label like Sony. There is more than enough room in this genre so that you can find an audience. And also for two, while I don't know the extent to how this affected his walk and faith in God, to me, his very last post suggests that one day, maybe his scars will heal. We'll never know, but I pray they do, as we all have our demons to overcome throughout this life. And besides, like I said before, I hope this video or situation doesn't define him and paint him in a sad or sorrowing light. The entire aim of this series wasn't to show you some pity story, but rather someone who left their legacy on a genre so much so that their lasting impression is seen and appreciated to this day. And I doubt that Kishon would watch this, but if he were to, man, if you were able to do what you did with all your circumstances, all while leaving a lasting impression in people today, I can only imagine that God can push you to do so much more in your future. And to everyone else watching, I hope that this story doesn't discourage you to lose hope in the Christian industry, CHH, and just trusting God's people in general. There are many people that have helped make CHH what it is today, including Kishon and his music. And if anything, I hope that this story serves to show you guys that this life isn't easy, as the path to success might not always be directly linear, but rather a series of jaded tests and trials to build us up so that we can learn from our mistakes and grow. I hope you guys all enjoyed this series, as I enjoyed making these videos for you guys. So if you can, tag someone that is a fan of CHH, or maybe a CHH artist that you follow on social media, and invite them to watch or subscribe. It would definitely mean a lot to me, as a lot of effort went into making this series, and I'm pretty sure that there are many people that also want to keep up and also see where Kishon is. Also, as a brief update too, there was a lot of news I missed in CHH for the past while, so I'm definitely going to be doing a video update and give you my thoughts on what's been happening in CHH this fall and winter. So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this series. It was definitely my favorite ones to make out of any CHH history video, and go ahead and comment what you guys thought about the series. What were your favorite moments, favorite episodes, and more. And yeah guys, this was a long video for sure, so I think I'll finish it off here, but with that being said, I'm signing out guys, so take care, peace, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Did it off of the rock, trying to get some cash to get my cousins off of the block. And I'm cool with the crew, but shawty, you know I'ma set some time aside for you, cause I'm too into you. I just wanna keep you around, stay 10 toes down, even when I'm leaning like a smooth criminal. Let's go get these folks. Let's say you beef with somebody. Ain't no more art. Look. People change when the deal come, but I could never really feel them, cause we came out the